Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. All right, enough fucking around. You know the deal. I'm back in the garage working again. And I'm playing with the new selfie stick. I think it's pretty slick. So anyways, we'll do this backwards. We're back out working on the motor. For a second, I was debating actually. I know in the last video I mentioned I was going to do trans and all that stuff. I debated actually putting the head, finishing putting the head together because it's just kind of fun, detailed bench work. I enjoy that stuff. But I decided that I'm going to continue with what I had originally planned. And it's time to finally get the trans broke down and get the last bit of the cases cleaned up. Go through shift fork, shift drum. Biggest thing I'm looking for is I didn't have problems with this stuff, but because this motor did have an issue and there was debris that did get into the motor from the last little mishap, I have to make sure all that debris is gone out of the motor, all the oil passages, anything in these cases, even like there's oil holes in the trans. The trans has oil running through it. I need to make sure that stuff is all good and clean. And we're going to look for any issues, anything might get into a bearing in the trans, because there's plenty of bearings in there. But that's the plan for today, is to get cases cleaned up, get that trans gone through, and get it all put together on that. And then we'll have we'll say 95% complete motor minus the cylinder head. So I'm going to keep running the camera up higher until it's just... Is this making any sense to anybody? Nobody's watching anyway, so what does it matter? So anyways, we're going to get going on some stuff, doing some things. Garage is warming up. We're at about... We're just short of 50 degrees. Can't you see that? You're not looking hard enough. Let's get to work. All right, first things first is I'm going to start with this because this is going to be the biggest mess to clean, and it'll be the biggest chunk of stuff to get out of the way off the bench. I'm going to go through, I'm going to get the shift shafts, shift forks, the shift mechanism, shift drum, detent assembly, and oil pump out of there. And then anything that's got a plug, any oil galleys that got plugs in them, that's all got to come out because that's all got to get flushed. And then, yeah, we'll get her cleaned, and then that's where we'll start reassembly. So I haven't done a whole lot since where I just left off in the last break there, but this is where it gets kind of tedious, and what seems like a 20-30 minute video was actually going to turn into 5 or 6 hours in the shop. I'm not running into any problems, but my problem is when I start reassembling things, I'm always looking for ways to improve things, make things better, just make it different. If you change nothing, nothing will change. So what that entails now is I'm going to be going through, even though I only have a small assortment of sub-assembly stuff here, I'm going to go through each individual one of these pieces, and if it's got a part that moves on it, it's got an abrasive surface, or if it can keep oil from draining back into the motor, it's going to get polished. You know what I mean? Like micro polish like chrome, but we're going to polish some things up. And the parts I'm working with, my biggest concern is actually just oil drain back. I want the oil to shed. You know, oil's getting splashed on, lubricates things, but I want it to be able to shed off and just constantly keep regenerating, basically. And so that's what we're going to do, is we're going to touch every piece and put a little touch on it. So that's the plan. Halfway done. So here's a little before and after. This is a shift drum from one of my other transmission setups. So I just polished up. So it's all deburred and shift fork should run through there nice and smooth now. Not that they didn't before, but even better now. So I just took a few extra minutes and polished up these contact points on the shift forks. Actually, it's a good way to find if you have got some major wear going on. There'll be some real rough looking areas on these. But these forks I just replaced like whatever when this motor was freshened up, and I never really have shifting issues, so I went ahead and just polished these up so everything will slide nice and easy on those as well. So like I said, it's going to touch every piece to make it, you know, a little better, a little nicer. So I got the shift drum, shift forks, shift shafts all back in. You can see the drums all polished up now. All my follower pins are all polished. Pads are polished on the forks. A trick when you go to put your cases back together, always try to get your shift drum into neutral, which is, it's easy to do because if I push this, I don't know if you'll be able to really see in there. If I push this, there's a wheel on the end of this right here. There's a wheel down there. That's shift drum. Let's see if I can actually, this is going to be kind of awkward to do one-handed. But anyway, that wheel sits in the neutral detent, and it's real obvious to see. But as long as you got that shift drum in neutral, when you go to put these cases together, these forks will all follow their appropriate grooves, and the case will hang upside down, and then, you know, those forks will come down into the trans as you're dropping the case down, and that'll line itself up. So that's a quick trick so that you know that there isn't just some random orientation to the shift drum. Put it in neutral. So I'm still plugging along here. We got the majority of this, like a little sub-assembly here. That's together. The last piece that I want to go through to put that back together is the oil pump. And if you notice, my oil pump is missing a drive shaft because I don't run a water pump, so I don't need to have that extra piece hanging off there, flopping around. But what I'm going to do is pull this apart. There's a screw on the back. We can split it and we can get in there, and we're going to look for any material that might have gone through the pump, any kind of galling or scarring. If the pump is excessively worn or got deep gouges in it, it won't build pressure in those gouges. You know, 1 pound or 20 pounds, it'll lose pressure over time if it's pretty abused. So we're going to go through this thing quick and then put her back together and get it in the cases. So I got her all apart. I don't really see any issues. There's a few nicks in the rotor here, but it's nothing major. It may even be just manufacturing issues, if anything. But if you're like me, you keep oil pumps in stock. So what I'm going to do is go through and look for the best one of those I can replace it with. So real quick, something I kind of had forgotten about over the years. So my bike's a 0304, but you can run the newer, I believe 05 is where it started, but 05 to 08 oil pumps in these bikes. This pump here, this is out of a 01 to 04. I'm going to show you the difference. So this is the rotor assembly. This is actually what spins around and makes pressure. If you notice, that's going to be kind of hard to see here. That difference from this one being thin, that one being thicker, the newer bikes actually will pump more oil. That's a higher volume pump compared to the stock 01 to 04. So just a little trick, if you're you're getting into your motor, you can actually put a new pump, because these housings dimensionally on the outside are the same. It's the insides where it's actually stepped. This one is meant to take the shallower, narrower pump. Little trick. Well, that piece is done. Time to dig into the trans. So what I got going on here is this is the output shaft, and my front sprocket is still on it. What I'm going to do is just disassemble this thing. It's just a stick with gears on it, bearings, some clips, and some washers. We're just going to disassemble it. We're going to keep everything stacked in a row how it came apart. We're just inspecting, we're going to clean, and then this is going to go back together. Then instead of these cases, we'll go on to the next stick. So I got the output shaft gone through, cleaned up, re-oiled, and pretty much ready to go. Next stick up, input shaft. If you notice, the clutch is still assembled on this thing. You don't need to pull the clutch apart to pull these out of the motors. I'm going to leave that together for now. I'm just going to focus on the trans itself. That will come apart before the motor gets fired up for sure. But for now, we're just focused on this, so we can drop it in there and put these halves together tonight. What I should show you quick is one thing. On these input shafts, there's a snap ring down inside of a beveled recess on this outer gear. You can't get at it. What you need to do is take the snap ring off on this gear. You can slide everything down, and then you can get to that snap ring. So like I said, I take everything apart, I lay it in order so you don't miss anything. And it all just stacks right back up on there. This bearing stays on. This gear is actually what's, it's part of the shaft. So these bearings have been on here a while and they're freaking great. I run micro blue bearings, so these things are worth the money. What I'm going to do now is, just like I did on that last shaft, which is nothing super exciting to watch, I'm just going to go through and inspect, look for problems, look for debris, and reassembly lube and stack it all back together. So I know my camera tipped over when I was putting that back together, but we're all good there. I didn't expect to find anything other than I just wanted to make sure it was clean. And then I'm going to drop it in the cases here now. So I got my real thin little layer of case sealer going all the way around now. And what I like to do is make sure I got the trans is in neutral. And right now it's not. All I gotta do is make sure that's in the center. Make sure these aren't engaged. There's the one that was engaged right there. And then neutral. Now when I go to drop the cases on, those forks will hang straight down. And all I gotta do is guide them in where they go. 1, 2, 3. So what I'm going to do is I just got some pliers just lightly clamped onto my shift shaft. So what I'm going to do is just, like right now we're in neutral. This would be, this would be bike rolling forward. So I'm going to go down, first gear, up, second gear, up again, third gear, there's fourth, fifth, sixth. Nothing else. Then we'll downshift, fifth, fourth, third, second, neutral, back to first. So we got all the gears. So there we have it. We got ourselves a fully assembled bottom end for a turbo GSXR 1000. It is really nothing special. It's a freaking riot being able to do this for like nickels, basically. I mean, the majority of the parts aren't cheap by themselves, but being able to do all of this like maintenance, rebuilding, freshening up, reusing used stuff, like I live for that shit. And I find it hilarious that it just works. So that's where I'm going to end this video. We're right on track for next go around is going to be finish that cylinder head. That'll be a little more involved. I left out a lot of little detail stuff with this even, just because I don't want to get so over technical that it gets boring. And I think I do that on some stuff. I just constantly go into why I do things a certain way. And I figured this go around with getting this back together, I'd kind of just blow through it pretty quick and just kind of hammer down and get some shit done. But as you can see, if you look down here, I got camshafts and stuff ready to go for that cylinder head. I got to go through everything. I did wreck, sorry, camera. I did wreck one cam on this last catastrophe. I don't know if I showed any of that, but that cam that's sitting over there, that's a web. That's junk. So, lucky for me, I keep spares. Weird. But yeah, so I'm going to end this video. I'm going to go inside and make some food. And I'm going to be very content with the progress today. So, like I said, you know, go in the garage and do something. Unless you're from Illinois, pay someone else to do it. Whatever, you know, potato. But, you know, bam, Bob's your uncle. See you later.